Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Trump's Secretary of Energy, Chris Wright, calls out Kaitlan Collins and the entire scientific community because they keep getting everything wrong. Let's dive in.
The group began working in early April with a May 28 deadline to deliver a draft for internal department review. The short timeline and the technical nature of the material meant that we could not comprehensively review all topics. If it's this important and it's reshaping energy and climate policy, should there be that tight of a timeline, or should they have had more time to do a comprehensive review?
Oh, these are authors who have been commenting and writing on climate change for decades. So what we wanted them to write was not start the science anew, but just summarize what do we know? What have been the conclusions of people studying, gathering data on climate change? The five of them work together great. And it's also an opening. It's an opening. We want to have a real debate and discussion about climate change and get away from the cancel culture Orwellian, if you don't say the thing the approved climate church says, you're silenced. That just crushed science. That just crushed progress. So no, this is open for public comment now. There'll be responses to those public comments. We'll probably have public events here in D.C. this fall. We want to have an honest dialogue with the American people about climate change.
But if it's open for public comments, the EPA is already using this to change its policy. It's citing this report. And some people have criticized the report, saying the information was cherry-picked by people who had already predetermined, what they wanted to say in this report. What would you say to them?
Oh, absolutely not. The report references the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports over 100 times. This report actually isn't radical or anything out of the conventional lines. It's just the media and the popular world never reads the actual details of climate change. This is really a summary of what do we know from the data. Now, saying all that in one place, amazingly, is controversial today.
But is it just the media? Because there's some climate scientists whose work was quoted in this report by the people that you handpicked who say their work is misrepresented. And one of them said the data points are picked to suit their narratives and exclude the vast majority of the scientific literature that does not.
I think that's an unfair assessment. But of course, look, people are very
even though it's someone who's quoted in the report, his work is quoted in the report.
I don't know that particular author or something like that. But if some data set is taken from some author and his conclusions are different from the data set, well, that's the process of science. I appreciate him or her commenting on that and engaging in the dialogue. But am I comfortable that this is a reasonable overview of what we know in climate change? I'm quite comfortable with that.
And you believe that this is the best and truest assessment of that you could find so far?
I think so, absolutely. It'll be improved as we get feedback and comments from others, and we'll continue to elaborate on it.
Well, I was curious because it contradicts the conclusions from the fifth and fourth U.S. national climate assessments that you obviously disagree with. But the fourth one was produced under the last Trump administration. So why would they have been wrong then, and that justifies this report now?
I don't know
What's
the answer
the discrepancy
to that, but I think it was released early on in the Trump administration. It was not prepared during the Trump administration. But our national climate assessment reports in the United States, and that's something we're going to look at those again. They have been in the past, when I have reviewed them, not fair assessments of the data. They have been more politically driven to hype up a real issue, but an issue that's just nowhere near the world's greatest challenge. Nobody who's a credible economist or scientist believes it is, except a few activists and alarmists, and that's the kind of stuff that gets in political reports.
But that fourth report was done in 2018. Trump had been in office for over a year at that point.
Yeah, again, I read that report then, but look, the data is the data. So whether the data was presented in a slanted thing or most stuff was left out. No one talks that CO2 is a fertilizer and that it makes the planet greener. That's just nuts. Everyone knows that. They learned that in elementary school science. But too many climate reports just take out stuff that make this not look like it's alarming. At least politicians do that.
But if this was done in 2018 in the first Trump term, do you believe it was slanted then and that they cherry-picked the data then?
Well, it certainly wasn't a reasonable representation of broad climate science at that time. I think my guess is the Trump administration didn't meaningfully engage in a climate change report that was done by, people that were career employees at the government. And if you're a sober, honest scientist, you don't come on the news, you don't get the headlines. The alarmist ones that make the claims that are on the extreme ends of things, they're the only ones that appear in the news, and they tend to be the most aggressive ones.
There's a taboo in this video because the topic that they're talking about is not actually the topic. We're not talking about rising temperatures or CO2 levels. We're talking about what is taboo, and that is, should you question scientists? And there's a reason why I think there's three topics in America that people actually care about. They care about what's in their food, okay? And by they, I mean we, naturally. We care about what's in our food, we care about our education, and we care about the cost of living. The Democrats have failed on all three, but this isn't a video about the Democrats or the Republicans, which have failed technically on two of them. That's a longer topic for a longer day, and I harp on the issues of our education system all the time. That's not what this is about. This video is actually a question of, should you question scientists? And the reason I bring up these three things is that scientists, for the most part, have screwed up in some form or fashion all three of these topics. There is a taboo in the modern world that you cannot question educated people. This has been a taboo ever since the progressive era in the early 1900s, where people started thinking, maybe us intellectual types should run everything because the little peons of the world just don't know what they're doing. We'll do it for you. That snooty New England nonsense, that puritanical ridiculousness that is still existent in the modern day. Hey y'all, experts say they rig the markets, print the money, and manipulate the system. But here's the truth. They can't print gold. While the dollar weakens, physical gold and silver stay real, tangible, uncontrolled. When banks go digital and emergencies lock you out of your own funds, gold and silver won't need an internet connection or government permission. Their value is outside the system, a time-tested insurance policy against tyranny, inflation, and economic resets. So don't wait until the trap is sprung. Own what the elites hoard behind closed doors. Physical gold and silver off the grid, because when the system fails, real money talks. And to help you learn more about owning physical gold and silver, we have partnered with the great company Goldco, which supports this channel, which we deeply appreciate. So check out PolitibralGold.com for more info and see if you might even qualify for free silver. That's PolitibralGold.com. Remember, the Puritans, I've got a great book up here that I reference every now and then, The Light and the Glory. Granted, they helped build this nation. Without them, there would have been no independence movement. But as their society ossified, they sort of lost their understanding of their own religion, and so they kept their puritanical ways, but they didn't keep a healthy skepticism. That's something that makes the South so unique. It actually kept us down for a long time, but now that we've had air conditioning and much easier access to property, we have kept that skeptical identity alive, and that's what makes us. That's what's made us wealthier. That's why people want to come down to the South, because we're skeptical of certain truths. We have noticed that there is a trend of scientific studies that don't match reality. This has been a problem ever since the 1960s, the 1970s. You can go back as far as you want, and at some point you can honestly say that yes, scientists were correct in a whole lot of earlier truths, but as we have changed our way of thinking, it used to be a sort of a Trinitarian ideal of thinking about theology, science, and what did C.S. Lewis quote? I cannot believe I'm missing this. But theology is asking, what is God? And what is God isn't just a question of religion. It's a question of, what do you see that's holier than yourself? Science asks the question, what is true? And it's science, theology, and philosophy. And philosophy asks, what is right? Science has stopped asking what is right, and they have definitely projected the idea of what is God, because as they've thrown the baby out with the bathwater when it comes to religion, they have lost their tethering here in America and across the West to other very important truths, and we've never recovered this. And so I know I'm getting really esoteric about Kaitlan Collins and our energy secretary, but the reality is, this is what we're actually talking about. We're talking about a problem with science. We're talking about an era where tobacco companies tried to pay off scientists in order to say their products are actually healthy. We're talking about giant organizations. I got 3 Coca-Cola bottles. No, 4. I forgot about the glass bottle above me because I'm a son of the Atlanta area. We take pride in the fact that we are the ones behind Coca-Cola. And they paid off scientists to say, no, it's not the sugars, it's not the corn syrup, it's the fat and the red meats, when we're discovering that, no, red meat's much better for you than this nonsense. As a matter of fact, I'm tempted to go on a carnivore diet myself. I really need to get back on keto. My dad bod is getting a little too big for his britches. But the reality is, we have lost a tethering to reality in our sciences. And so when we talk about what's in our food, we talk about what's in our education, we talk about the cost of living, we need to start asking ourselves, what is good for the human race? What is good for America? What is good for my state? What is good for my city? What's good for my family? We've lost that ability somewhere along the way, and we must rediscover it. For me, that's a big thing. That's a big part of what makes America great again. And we need to start reinvesting in what makes science tethered to the rest of reality. Because without that, science becomes this destructive force. That's why the movie the Alien franchise exists. That's why Jurassic Park exists. The whole question of what is science without reason is being answered in front of our very eyes. And that's not a topic that CNN is really going to talk about here, and that's not something that the Energy Secretary is going to talk about. But the reason I've gone off in the weeds is because I've seen that there's a fundamental problem here. And that's why I have gone in this direction. But I hope, please tell me if this is the right way to go in the comments below. My name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politbro. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Till then, y'all have a good one.